Good morning, everybody. My name is Bill Pollack, and we're at the Peterson Museum in Los Angeles. And it's October of 2001. I think it's the 20th.
22nd.
22nd?
To be
Okay.
exact, yes.
And our guest this morning is Dick Guldstrand, and he's going to talk to us about what he wants to talk to us about. So,
Well, Bill, thanks for inviting me. This
glad
is
you're here.
really a pleasure. I always full of hot air, so it's one good way of getting through it. But well, I'm basically a California hot rodder. That defines a lot. But I
That
think
says
that
it. Right.
in context, if you were a teenager in Southern California in the 40s and 50s, if you weren't a hot rodder, you were either a candy ass or a, or a jock, or you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying. So,
exactly.
so you pretty well had to get into that, particularly if you felt you had anything to offer, if you had an ego, or if you were, trying to present yourself in some manner. The automobile was a fabulous instrument, and they were cheap and they were available, and of course the fabulous roads out here in Southern California and the weather. And you could always get a job. There was, in my era, thank God we were past the Holocaust and all of that. We were in an area where we could survive, and of course, the automobile was it, in my opinion. And
Definitely.
and it had to do with the family too. My dad was interested in cars. He was kind of an inventor, and
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, and he used to drag me on his shoulders out to Ascot and the old racetracks, and which we had a great deal of here in Southern California. And once you hear the noise and you see the excitement and the smoke and all, and smell that alcohol and the Castrol, man, you are hooked.
Yeah,
And as a
Castro especially. Had a-
Very young kid,
Yeah.
I was introduced to that. And I think that if you have any aptitude in that direction or any mechanical ability, boy, you could shine, and and of course, in the beginnings it was soapbox racers, and it was, go-karts, and it was goofy little things that you glued together in the garage with your dad or the family, and then, remembering the first car. Well, that's...
So what was the first one?
The first one was a 1929 Model A coupe,
Perfect.
one of the, yeah, absolutely. And I think it was $50, and and it didn't run, it sort of ran, So at 14 years old, you start building this thing, and you learn the car and you learn your capabilities. And by the time I was 15, which I could get a license, then the car I could license took it down and got me licensed, and we all kind of joined forces. And what do you do with your first car? You take it all apart.
That's right.
What else
Immediately.
is there? You got it spread all over poor mother's backyard and her kitchen, and carburetors in the sink, and God help how they put up with that with me. Today it's different. The kids don't seem to be so deeply involved, but then, the rebuilding of the carburetor was a family event. It happened in the
Yeah.
kitchen on the sink, and
Dining room table.
oh yeah, oh God, and the greasy
Where are the
foot
noodle
marks.
valves?
Yeah, right. Yeah, how does this work?
Yeah.
And that was the beginning. And of course, the marvelous short-term goal, if you could get that thing running, for the weekend, oh my God, you could, go out on a date, or you could take it to the football game, and you were the hero because you had your Model A, and when I was just out of junior high school, see, just starting high school. So that was, I was kind of King Tut there with, being one of the first cars in the school.
Just having a car. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that sort of a thing really grabs you. If you have any kind of an ego, if you're trying to present yourself, and be able to do it through that media, boy, you're hooked. If you ever had an addiction, God help you, you're into it now.
Yeah.
But I think that happened with a lot of kids at that time. Because, I was born in 1947, and so that was kind of early on, that was kind of the beginning of time, and so that got started. Well, of course, once you get into cars, now how do you get a job? Well, you work in every gas station and garage and so on
Sure.
to support your habit, and that's to get to El Mirage, you know, with this thing.
Yeah.
So what do? You saw the top of it off, take the fenders off, you know, get a wind, you know, Winfield head and a downdraft carburetor, you know, and a magneto,
Oh, boy.
and you know, and all the and finally, what are you doing with that? Oh, no, well, nothing. I'm just working on it. Well,
Yeah.
of course, this is the most screaming, roaring thing ever seen at LA High School. And you did. You finally ended up. I worked for Louis Center. I worked for Vic Edelbrock. I worked for Ed Eskandarian, and I knew all these guys. And they were just in the meager beginnings. They were all kind of getting out of the service.
Uh-huh.
And their technology. They were all in the Air Force, and they had learned metallurgy, and they learned fasteners and fittings and hydraulics. And these guys coming out were the heroes, because the automobile business was an anvil and a hammer, you know,
That's right.
until after that of World War II. And when they started coming out, oh my God, the things they had to offer, you know, well, I had to be in the middle of that stuff. So that was the beginning when I think the aerospace really had a tremendous amount to do with the development of the automobile. It was that period in time. And these guys had all been in the service. You know, all of them were in the military and had learned all of that. We're all
Right.
mechanics and so on, if not pilots, and you know, and so forth. And so I was very, very fortunate to be able to work with them and for them at that time. And going to El Mirage and Muroc Dry Lakes with these things and running 120 miles an hour, you know, how we survived that's a bloody miracle.
You lived through it.
Oh,
Yeah.
and some of us didn't. That was
Yeah.
few of my friends didn't quite make it, you know. And in the middle of all this, there were these shops that were starting to develop parts, like Vic Edelbrock
Yeah.
and Ed Eskandarian and Stuart Hilborn, and, you know, and Moon and on and on and on. We're developing an aftermarket. I had no concept of how big that could get. No, I don't think they did either,
No.
because there's nothing else like it really in the world, you know, or in the
There was
United
no
States.
such thing. Well,
No.
yes, there was too, but it was very limited.
Yeah.
Very, very limited.
Uh-huh.
And, you know,
That was, yeah, Raja, remember the...
Yeah.
Well, of course, and all the old early stuff were
There
the
wasn't much. you
Raja
know.
heads and Ruxel rear ends and a few other things, but not much. And of course, then the new wheels started coming out. They had smaller wheels. Remember, they went
Right.
from 21 inch down to, I think you get an 18 inch or something, and then
Yeah.
down to 15.
Exactly.
And the tires came along with that. But that really hooks you, you know, as a kid in high school, and you're kind of the center of attraction. Boy, you're in deep doo-doo, you know, when it comes to trying to develop a life. And my folks were real adamant about me, so I had to go to school. I went to, out of LA High School, and then I went to UCLA and took pre-law, and that didn't work. And then I started into engineering, and that really cooked. Although I didn't graduate, I got a wonderful job with the Ralph M. Parsons Company when I got out of the service in 1951.
I knew them.
And I worked as a senior engineer for them for many years. But always in the background was the car.
Uh-huh.
And early on in the late 40s, when I was still in school, in college, I was driving a midget for Louis Center on the
How
board
did that
tracks.
happen?
Well, that was kind of interesting. Again, mechanic. You know,
Yeah.
I'm trying to make a buck, put my Model A together, and now it was a 27T. Oh, the Model A now evolved into a 27T over 32 rails. You know, chopped
Okay,
and with
okay.
it. And Frank Curtis helped me build a nose for it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and a belly pan, and a guy named Marvin Faw also helped me, and Emil Dietz with the body work.
Yeah.
These are people I worked for, and so the beautiful 27T Roadster with the Curtis nose, and we can imagine. So I'm working on this, and a guy came into the shop, with Louis' shop, with a midget and said, would you help me put this thing together? I got to get out to the Culver Speedway, for the series. It was just starting the race series, and I think it was called AAA at that time. Later it got to be USAC, but it was AAA. Remember the red and the blue circuit,
Yeah.
And so he said, "Yeah, I'm going to run this." It was a little V8 60, remember that, and a midget.
I had
oh
one.
yeah, oh my God. Well, I knew those inside and out because I'd been porting and polishing for
Yeah.
Louis, on the
Good
dirt
little engine.
floor there,
Yeah.
grinding on the heads. And so he said, I went out to the track with him, and sure as heck, we got it out there and got it off the trailer and all polished up. Driver didn't show up. Well, we're waiting and waiting, and everybody, oh, geez, and all of a sudden he shows up blitzed, He was loaded.
Out of it.
So they said, well, you've been driving up at the lakes. You've been driving. We heard about you on Mulholland. Why don't you try it? Well, I was, 16 or 17 probably. 17, I think, at the time. So I was an old veteran,
Sure.
by, Pasadena drag races and all that. So I get in this thing and absolutely scared the life out of me. But right away you find out again, are you a candy ass or are you a race driver,
right.
man? So I just stood on that son of a gun and didn't do real well, but what a night,
Yeah.
So he said, well, you want to drive this thing? So I drove it, and this guy's name was Carl Newsom, and he was a very good friend of Louis Sanders. And then later I drove for Louis on the board tracks at Pasadena. Remember that, when they had boards there?
Yes.
In the late 40s. And at Carpinteria. Oh, God, we had so much fun going up to Carpinteria. We'd be driving up there in the afternoon, this would be, because it was Saturday night races, going up Saturday afternoon, and we'd buy a bottle of pickles, and we'd be driving up there eating pickles and telling everybody how we're going to win this thing. Well, we got up there, we had half a bottle of pickles left. So out in the practice session, a lot of people come out to see you, pack down the clay and the dirt, and I'm sliding around, and they said, well, take the pickles. And I go, hey, it's a great idea. So I put the pickles between my legs and the midget, come down the front straightaway, and I'd grab a pickle and throw it up into the grandstand. We could see it arc up into and whap, and it hit somebody. Started the wildest fight you'd ever seen up in the grandstand. Everybody thought they were throwing pickles, and they were coming. Well, they finally found out where they were coming from. So they were about coming down out of the grandstand, going to kill us,
That's funny.
Oh, God.
Jesus, that is...
And but anyway, we had a great time in that circuit, and I drove that for that season for Louis. And
That was the V860?
the V860
Yeah.
in the little midget. We really did pretty well. And then I went to get into the sprint cars. Well, I was drafted at that time. I got drafted into I was 18. I think that's when they got me.
Yeah.
And so that kind of ended that career. And when I got out of the service, then I went to school, went to UCLA, but still had the love affair, and was. I think it probably saved my life, because I was getting into the sprint cars, and they were killing more than they were winning. They were
pretty wild.
vicious cars.
Yeah.
There were no roll bars, no protection whatsoever,
nothing.
and they were fast. They had those big. They're starting to get into the flathead Fords.
Big flatheads.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
they
Jesus,
didn't weigh
they were
anything,
quick.
and they were...
Yep, and of course they used a lot of some of the four cylinders, the Frontenacs and the Hissos. Remember the Hisso? Oh,
Yes.
Jesus. Those were powerful, and the Offies. So
And of course, it's on dirt.
On dirt.
You can flip
you
instantly on
could
dirt.
you could catch a wheel and go over in a heartbeat. Thank God, I never did get into any real trouble. I hit the wall a couple, bounced off of things, but I think it was very lucky that I got out of that, because when I got out of the service, then the big thing was sports cars, and of course the first thing I saw when I got out of the service was the Corvette at the Motorama. Remember that?
Yeah, the General Motors.
General
No,
Motors.
it was Peterson's. Well, Peterson owned Motorama, but then
Yeah.
General Motors decided they wanted it, and you don't argue with
I
Mother
don't think
Nature.
you don't, with the General,
Yeah.
The General took it over, I guess. So what happened was, I couldn't believe, after seeing the little European sports cars and all, and I was in Germany during my stay
Uh-huh.
in the Army, and they took me away kicking and screaming, but you can still see the claw marks down Union Station where they drugged me out.
Oh,
But
God.
but I fell in love with that car, and I got a couple of rides in a MG,
Uh-huh.
at one, I think once at Palm Springs. When was that? 52.
It was 51 and 2.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
right around in
And
there.
then of course Willow Springs started opening up. I went up there later
Yeah.
in the 50s, and then got married in the middle somehow or other. I don't know how that happened,
That
but
slipped that in.
not a real good idea. But it generated two great kids that I will never get over. They're just fabulous, and but really started getting back into racing again. I was working for the Ralph M. Parsons Company as an engineer. Aerospace with Dr. Von Braun and Dr. Norbert, and doing a lot of the work at Huntsville for
Uh-huh.
Parsons Company, and of course at White Sands and all the rest of it, and Edwards, and so, but I could always squeeze in on the weekends, and I was making a pretty good living, so I finally got myself a 1956 Corvette. Oh God, it was gorgeous, with the coves and the cutout and the V8, and
I was going to ask you if that was the one with the V8.
Yeah, it was one of the first.
Yeah,
It wasn't the
one of
real
the
good
early.
one. But I got to playing around with that, and right away didn't do too bad. Won a race at Del Mar, won another one down in San Diego. This was in, I think, about 58, because I was running everything that would hold still up until about then, 59. And then I was starting to do a little bit better, and got a sponsor, a Bear Chevrolet. And
That was very rare.
Yeah, it really was. He wanted to get into the Corvette business. He saw what Harry Mann was doing. He saw what
Right.
a lot of the
Yeah.
big dealers were doing with the draw. It wasn't so much selling the car. It was the kids dragging the families in. So High Bear was quite a businessman. The guy was incredible. And so I walked in one day, and they said, "You'll never get a sponsor." And I said, "No, had the car on the trailer. We had it all painted up with the Bear Chevrolet on the side, or no, Bear Special." This was about I think it was 59, something like that. And went in there, and he looked at that and looked at me, and he said, "You got a deal." Well, I damn near fell over. He said, "What do you want?" I said, "Well, right away, I need a fuel injection, I need a new V8,
Yeah.
I need a 4-speed transmission." And I'd been talking to Duntoff by now, I
Yeah.
was probably one of the few guys, other than Bob Bondurant and some guys that were running Corvettes on the West Coast. And so he said, yeah, I'll help you, "Deke, what you want?" He was a
Yeah.
great guy. "Deke, what you want?" "I want the parts." So what do you do with a brand new car, You take it all apart again. So
Exactly.
tore that mother all apart, spread it all over, Manhattan Beach, and where I was living at the time, after my wife decided she, wasn't too enthralled with my activities. This was in the later 50s. And so I was alone again. I was a bachelor in a fabulous bachelor pad in Huntington Beach.
Oh, that's too bad.
It was not a
I
hard
don't want to hear
life.
about it.
That was when racing was dangerous and sex was safe,
Yeah.
So it was a whole
good
new
old
life.
days.
The good old days, yeah. Yeah, but in El Porto. I was in a little apartment down there right on the beach and racing these cars. And I finally ended up probably in, I think it was in the early 60s, I got out of the aerospace thing. I just had to go, because High Bear wanted me to work for him.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, shoot, why not? I mean, we're almost racing full-time anyway, and I was taking time off, and I'd been hurt a couple of times, so they were really upset with me. Come in bandaged. I wasn't the smoothest. I could go fast, but I couldn't seem to keep out of a lot of trouble.
It was a sudden stop.
It was. So Mr. Bear, said, "Yeah, well, I can put you on as a special automotive, specialist or something."
Yeah.
I don't even know what he called it, but he put me on a salary, and I also got a commission for selling Corvettes, and that really got me out of the aerospace, because I really wanted to bail out of it anyway, and it was getting way too political. Not that I didn't love it dearly, and it was highly motivating and exciting. It was so political, and I wasn't a politician. I was not good at that. And so what they do is take you out of something you were really good at, which was the technical end of it, and put you into management, which I was terrible at, and so I was on my way out anyway. So I promoted myself right out of a job, really. And so I went to work for Bear and went into the Corvette thing. And then at the same time got some rides in stock cars. They were starting to run, remember at Riverside in 60,
Yeah.
1 or 2, something like
Yeah,
that?
we thought they were crazy.
Oh, but I never had so damn much fun in my life. It was a 409 Chevy Impala. Remember those 409s?
Yes, yes.
Did really well in them. I mean, Gurney drove, and a guy named Skip Hudson, and Bobby Bondurant, and myself.
Machine to be.
Oh, they were
whirling around.
Oh, they were. It was insanity.
Yeah.
But it was fun, and of course we had a little more experience, so we got some of the good rides. Because the
Yeah.
guys, Petty couldn't get out of his own way, and Richard Pearson was pretty good. Davey was good, and some of the guys were fairly good at road racing, but But Gurney, you know, we could really show them up, you know, on the track.
Yeah, they were good at turning
Yeah,
left.
oh, they were fabulous. I mean, at the drafting and the high banks,
Yeah.
they were incredible. That takes sheer, unadulterated guts.
Yeah.
And until I did it for the first time, I didn't realize how terrifying. Really, it looks so easy. You know, they're all set back and cool and Oh, man, at 190, 200 miles an hour, mother of God. How do you look cool?
I don't know.
2 inches away from a guy, you know. Well, anyway, it's another world. But I did get involved in NASCAR. In fact, I drove NASCAR for about 15 years.
Really?
West Coast
I didn't
stuff.
know
Oh,
that.
yeah. A lot of West Coast races, you know, all the stuff they ran here on the, you know.
Were you driving Chevys?
Almost all Chevys, except for a couple of times I ended up in a Ford for Scotty Kane and a Dodge for a guy named Wendell Scott, which was probably the only black NASCAR driver ever, I think. Really a nice man,
Yeah.
Wendell Scott. And I drove for him at Riverside in his Dodge. And so I had kind of a varied, and primarily it was in Chevys, because I had a couple of dealers and a guy that I drove for a lot. A guy named, my crew chief was Bobby Joe McDonald, a real redneck Texan. God love him, he was just a great man. And
You're still racing.
oh yeah, sure. Oh yeah,
You're 100 and what?
105, yeah. And holding. Yeah. Anyway,
That's great.
Yeah,
So,
so-
what are you driving these? What do you?
well, you know, after we got
Okay.
got into that,
Yeah.
I won 3 West Coast championships in A production in 63, 64, 65.
Did it pay pretty good?
Oh, yeah, I really did. I got 3 trophies and a lunch.
My goodness
Yeah,
gracious.
yeah, and cleaned me out of money, and it lost me a wife, and well, you know, I think we went
Yeah.
through that. But anyway, but what happened was we did really well with these cars, and we had developed quite a following, and I was selling Corvettes, and we were doing special work for Chevrolet. I had really got to know Zora Duntov by that time extremely well, and Bill Mitchell, and Bob, and Estes, you know, and really got to know all of the Chevy people extremely well, you know, and was working for them, because they weren't really into under the table kind of stuff, you know, and we could get parts and special things and all, and we did extremely well with that. And then we got a call from a guy named Roger Penske, and he says, "Hey Goldie, would you like to drive for me?" And I said, "Well, what's a Roger? Who are you?" You know, and then Duntov calls me up and says, Deke, you got to go to work for him. We want to run some cars at Daytona and Sebring and Le Mans. You know, we want to put a big program together. This was in probably the mid-'60s, like 65. We got a brand new big engine we call the L88 coming out, and you've done, you know, why don't you join our group and go to work for Penske? Well, High Bear about went through the ceiling. I was working for him, and things were going really well for him, and all of a sudden, I guess he chewed out Chevrolet like there's no tomorrow. He called them up and burned down phone wires, you know.
Wow.
Well, he was really, because I was his guy, you know, we were very good friends, but I mean, here's a chance to go east.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember that there was the east and the west. You remember that,
Of course.
Bill. We were the bastard child out here. If you did anything,
Still are.
I still are. Honest to God, it's incredible. So to be able to go back and mix it up with all the guys, you know, Smokey Unique and Roger Penske and Don Yanko and Dick Thompson and all the greats, you know, back there. Well, how could I pass it up, you know?
Absolutely.
So I get on the airplane and I fly back there, and this was in late 65, I think, and get off the plane in the snow, and here I am in a T-shirt, you know, and loafers, and Penske's looking at me like, man, I've really hired an idiot, you know, and I'm in the snow, and what is this white stuff, you know? It was in late 65, and it was colder than a mother, and, you know, he just couldn't believe that I didn't even own a jacket, you know? So he fixed me all up and gave me a Corvette to drive, and we got our first LA88 in late 65. Right, I drove it from St. Louis to picked it up at the factory and drove it out to Pennsylvania, where we had a little shop, Newtown Court, Pennsylvania, with that car, and we took it out there. And what do you do with a brand new car, a Corvette thing? Take it all apart, man. We had that spread all over Newtown Court, Pennsylvania, and got Bill Murphy and Murph the Surf, Bill Mayberry, and Scotty, Scott, Bill Scott and Penske and myself and a couple of guys, and the massive team, you know.
Yeah.
And we put this Corvette together and got Traco to build us an engine, you know, because they were my next door neighbors. They were the guys that I'd worked for
Yeah. You did
on Thunder
fabulous
Alley.
things.
Oh, they were incredible. So we conned them into building us an engine for this car, and put it all together in Pennsylvania in the snow. I got pneumonia, and figured out how to live in that stuff. And then here we towed it clear down across country down into Florida. And I figured, man, we get to Florida, it's going to be warm. Well, it was 28 degrees in Florida when we get down there.
God.
Oh, I had never been so cold in my life. In fact, I got pictures of, I was in the car with a giant jacket on, you know, and strapped in with this jacket over my driving suit, trying to keep warm in a race car, if you can imagine that. But we get down there, and boy, well, there's a whole story in its own, to get that thing qualified. And, you know, it was running 190 miles an hour. And that's on those bankings, you know, I was just...
This is a Daytona, right?
Yeah, it was a Daytona. Yeah, the Daytona 24 hours.
Never.
Second year they ran it, I think, was 66. Or was the third year? I can't remember. Second or third
You
year.
had to be pulling a couple of G's.
Oh, we were. Oh, the car. And if it hadn't have been for Bobby Joe McDonald and his brilliance, and he figured out how to set the car up in the springs and all. Because the
people were
sports car.
crashing
Oh,
suspensions.
yeah. Oh, no, they were.
The
And
first
if
one.
you ever bottomed that thing, went to infinite spring rate, and you were history, you know.
Yeah.
So we got it worked out where, got the springs all set up and got the alignment right. So it went like stink on the banking, and it didn't do too well in the infield, but that's where we made our time. And we were flying. And the first time I drove it up on the banking, I couldn't keep my foot down.
Oh, wow.
Could not. And I'm sitting on the bed like a bride crying, are you a candy ass or are you a race driver? You know, because I got to keep my foot down. You know, going into the banking, man, that foot would pop up. And so I had to reach over with my other foot and put it on there.
Really?
Yes. And just hang on, because when you go into the banking,
The right foot was a little chickadee, but the
very,
left foot
there was nothing left connected between the mind and the foot. You lose this, there's a connection that completely disappears. I don't know what happens, but there's not, it's got its mind of its own. But to go, yeah, it comes up somehow, and I that wasn't what I had in mind. So I kept it down. Well, what happens when you go into this banking, it looks like you're in a black wall, and you're coming through, and when it takes a set, you got to turn out, because it actually slides onto the banking at these speeds. It takes a set, and you got to hold it into whatever groove you've decided to. And the tires weren't really good at that time, you know, and we're running like stink. And come off the other side, it kind of danced you over towards the wall, and you had to unload it, you know, and straighten it out. So
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Oh, it was exciting as hell. Well, I figured I was either going to die or win. You know, I'm not going to lift anymore. So once you never get used to it, especially in a little Corvette, you know, in a production car, because we were running up with the prototypes with that L88. I mean, it was flying. And I'm not trying to qualify, and Phil Hill's driving the Chaparral for a couple of California crazies, right?
Yeah.
I'm coming off the banking, spin the car into the infield, you know, when I'm trying to get down into the infield. Really lost it big time. And it's mud and spinning, and I'm just hoping to God it doesn't flip. Well, it stopped over in the dirt, you know, over the other side. And I'm walking back towards the pits, and I can see Penske looking down at me. I figured, how am I going to get back to California? You know, my career started and ended, you know, on the high bank at Daytona. And here comes Phil Hill, comes down, spun it in the same place, it slid over and stopped not too far from the vet. He gets out and he's walking over. We're walking up together, and I see Jim Hall and Phil Hill, and Penske talking about us, you know, thinking, well, we got a couple of California crazies, and I bought him dinner that night and drinks, and he saved my life and my career, you know. If he hadn't have done that, I probably wouldn't have made it.
That's funny.
But make a long story short.
I've never talked to anybody that drove on that bank.
Oh, it's
and very interesting.
It really is to get your, because you don't turn into it. You don't. Oh yeah, you don't turn into it. You let the car go onto the banking, and then you catch it and you turn out and let it slide onto the banking. Because you're going so fast in the tire, and you're pulling so many G's, and to hold it in that particular groove, you know, wherever you want it to be.
You'd have to.
You got to hang on for dear life.
I rode a bicycle on a bank track. There's one. There's one on Encino.
Sure.
And unless you really are on it, you're not going to stay up there.
Oh no.
So the same thing applies with
Well, you
cars.
couldn't walk up. You can't walk up the banking at Daytona or Talladega. I don't know what it is, 30-some degree, 32
wow.
degrees or something like that. I mean, it's, and so you're flying onto this thing, and you just got to get a hold of it, get a handle, you know, and let it kind of set, and then you hold it there, and it kind of dances around a little bit, and then when it comes off the banking, it heads
Is the
toward the
surface fairly
wall.
smooth?
It's
Because if you had any
Well,
bumps in it, I know.
no,
that
there's some bumps. There's
was a-
what they call the entry bump.
Okay.
There's a tunnel bump over when you're exiting, where you come into the.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little thing there that never really got smoothed out when they built the tunnel underneath the banking.
I know there was a bank track
You
in
go,
Italy
and
that,
you hit it, and it kind of slides you out towards the wall.
there was a bank track in Italy that was, apparently, the banking was very rough and used
Yeah.
to just tear
Oh, yeah,
cars up
yeah.
terribly.
That was at Monza, yeah, I think.
Yeah, Monza.
Yeah, I've been over there. In fact, at one time or another, I've driven about every major track in the world.
Have you really?
Yeah, Mexico, South America, Japan. I drove Formula 2 in Japan.
Did you really?
For Honda, yeah. Europe, you know, Le Mans.
You drove at
Spa.
Le Mans?
Oh, yeah.
What did you drive at
Set-
Le Mans?
Corvette.
Corvette.
What else?
Sure.
And that was,
How'd you do?
we set the track record for GT cars, won 180-some miles an hour in 67.
They're back doing pretty good right now, too.
Oh, yeah. Oh, they're doing great. Well, we didn't finish. I mean, we led the entire, you know, GT, not prototype, GT.
Yeah.
And then the engine let go. We had a problem with the engine, which is another story in itself, but when Chevrolet got involved. But we won Daytona, won the race, going away. And of course, that really excited everybody. I really got to know everybody at Chevrolet there. And in the meantime, there was a thing called the Can-Am starting. And I had been invited to drive some Can-Am cars. You know, so when I got back to, after the race, we were setting up to go
Explain
to
what a
Sebring.
Can-Am car is.
Well, that was really interesting in the 50s and 60s, a good old California hot rodders, right? They came up with these specials. There was Max Bilchowski's Old Yeller, and there
Yeah.
was Roger Penske's Zurek special, and there
Yeah.
was Phil Hill, I mean, all kinds of specials.
Right.
Even, I think Ken Miles had the shingle, it was
Right.
a MG
A
special.
lot of them.
So there was all kinds of
Baldwin
these,
built
yeah, and there
cars, glass
wasn't,
bar built
right, and there
cars.
really wasn't a category for them, you know, there wasn't, and all this wonderful talent and excitement. So they started a series called the USRCs, United States Road Racing Championships, which were for these special vehicles, prototype stuff, you know. And they made up kind of a formula, very loose formula. And they had two categories. They had the what they called the Group 7 category and the GT category. And the Group 7 was just the way the FIA ruled it. You know, it was a open car, you know, big V8 engine in the back, mid-engine car, and run what you brung. What do you want to build? So it gave vent to all of this talent worldwide. You know, McLaren, Lotus, Lola, McKee, Max Bilchowski,
All of them?
everybody that ever had an idea, wanted to build a special. He had a venue for it. You know.
Great.
So that's really what that's how it started. And Can-Am means Canadian American.
Okay.
Because we ran 3 or 4 races in Canada, and we ran a bunch of races in the United States. So that's how it got the Can-Am
So you
challenge, you
So
know.
you were going to make a move there?
Oh, yeah. But as usual, I was doing too many things. I was trying to get an IndyCar ride. I was driving some Can-Am stuff. There was a thing called the Trans Am that was starting. Remember that?
Yeah.
The Trans-American Challenge, which were for little pony cars, American muscle cars. So there was an opportunity there. Well, all of a sudden, all this stuff going on, and how do you make a choice? This was incredibly difficult, because if you're a racer and somebody calls you up, what do? You get on a plane, or
Yeah,
you know,
say yes.
yes,
Of course.
you know, and there wasn't a lot of there wasn't a lot of money at it, so it wasn't like somebody would say, well, I'll give you $1 million to drive my, you know.
Yeah.
There was I'll give you lunch, you know, an airplane ticket, and you can have a motel if you get here in time, you know, and maybe, you know, $50 if you win it. And crazy stuff. So anyway, we won. I got a little off the track, but we won the Daytona 24 Hour, and that was in '66. And then we took that same car, and we have also built a thing called a Grand Sport that General Motors had given, or Duntop had given us, one of the 5 Grand Sports, a convertible. And they'd been run successfully a year or two before that at Nassau, but he wanted to run, Penske wanted to run the last hurrah for a big front-engine American muscle car, and that was the Grand Sport. So Dick Thompson and I were a team to drive that. And it didn't do very well, so I was backup driver in the little car I'd driven at Daytona. This was all at Sebring in the same year, 66. So the car won Sebring. So here we got Sebring and we got Daytona in the GT category. What looms but Le Mans? So man, I'm going. I went to work for an outfit when well, that's another story. In the middle of all this, I'm driving an Indy car, a Champ car for Louis Center, and I'm only doing some practicing and all because we wanted to get it. We wanted to take it to. In late '66, we wanted to take it to some of the Champ car events, the USAC events.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a very good car. We had a lot of trouble with it, and Andretti told me not to drive it, as did Parnelli Jones, and they both crashed it. It was built by Trotman and Barnes. Well, I about killed myself in it, in Atlanta. And I mean, it really got upside down, end for end, one of those. I still hold the altitude record at Atlanta. Did you know that? Now that's something for a race driver, huh? So I'm still on the record book, an altitude record. And, well, that was the crash they didn't rush over to. They figured if they could cover it over, it'd be better.
Yeah, throw a tarp over.
Yeah, really, and just forget it. Well, I was really screwed up. I was paralyzed from the waist down for a while. In fact, they didn't think I'd walk again. And through some therapy, some really great young doctors, they worked me through it. And it was a lot of nerve damage, and I'd broken my back in 2 places, and engine come forward, whacked me and broke my sacrum bone and all that crap.
Oh, boy.
So I was really screwed up. Well, Penske heard about this. This was just after Sebring. Well, he quietly let me go and didn't want to pay me until he figured I wasn't going to die. So he heard that I was going to live, so I got my last check. But that was the end of Mr. Penske and I. But it also opened up the door to the Trans Am, because I went to work for a company called Dana Chevrolet after I left Penske. And Dana was just starting into the racing. If you'd probably heard of them, we'd build a very special Corvette. We built a lot of L-88s for racers, when I was working there. And we also got our first little Camaro, which was the beginning of the Trans Am series for the Camaro in 1967. So I'd pretty well healed by then, or at least I was hobbling but still moving around. So we put this Camaro together, and we were going to go racing in the Trans Am series, while everything else is kind of cooking around, and I'm trying to heal, see if I still have a reputation. It's kind of a big one. And we went up to San Jovite, and that was the first time a Camaro had won anything. I won San Jovite in the little Camaro in the Trans Am, and did really well in some other races with the Camaro, and then started with the Can-Am series. And I'd been invited to drive a couple of different cars in the Can-Am program. One that was built by Scooter Patrick and Hans Adams, called the GP7. That was a beautiful car, and we ran a couple of races in that, and I flipped it at Riverside, and that finished that one. And that's another, we didn't have the aerodynamics right and would fly. I could go down the back straightaway and come off the ground.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I figured I'll go one more lap, right? Right, we go one more lap, right? Yeah.
Sure.
Well, upside down, into the crash, bang, upside down, flipped the thing, tore it all to shit. End of program. So that finished our Can-Am program. But I'm still driving stock cars, that's going to be all right. I finished my open wheel career. And but the Can-Am started to come up, so I started getting calls on driving Can-Am cars. And that went pretty good. I could make some money at that. There was actually some bucks being paid, and so I went up to Kent, Washington, and Laguna Seca, and they just opened Sears. Remember, we'd worked on that track. I think you were up there when I was, when they were just groundbreaking, at Sears Point. So we ran some great stuff, and this I got a call from Goodyear. I was a Goodyear contract driver by then. He said, would you like to drive in the Can-Am series in 1970 for a guy named Eric Hauser. Okay, and
Oh, boy.
yeah, another real winner.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so Willie will be calling you. See, Willie. Well, I thought probably Willie would be this great big guy, you know, come in. Well, Willie turned out to be this most gorgeous blonde you ever seen in your life. That was the team manager.
Oh, my.
Well, that became my second wife. Not only did we do pretty good with her, with the Lola that I drove, you know, in a number of races, but I married the team manager, and that was the best thing, the smartest thing I ever did in my life. That really kind of
Right.
calmed me down, and our life together after that had been just incredible. Yep, you know, she's in the hospital right now. I'm having a little trouble. She has cancer, but we've had 32 years. Oh no, 30 that are just unbelievable. And my buddy and my friend and my team manager, and you know,
Perfect.
yeah, it couldn't have been better. So right about then, I figured I'd better start looking for something else to do. I wasn't any spring chicken anymore. I was getting on 50. And, oops, I didn't say that. No, I was only
I didn't hear
35.
that.
My kids are older than I am. You know that? I can't believe it. My kid just turned 50, and I'm only 38.
I know.
Now, how could he do that to me?
Yeah.
That's awful.
Yeah, when your kids start getting AARP, that's when you know the days are
Yeah, you're
shady.
yeah, you're into the twilight zone. Yeah, you're definitely getting into the meager years. But yeah, I did. I drove Formula 2 for Honda. I drove at Le Mans. We did some GT races at Sebring. I mean at Spa and Zandvoort. And so I drove all those tracks. And then in the United States, I drove about everything because of the Trans Am and the Can-Am
Yeah.
series. And that was a gas. But so I started a little shop called Guldstrand Engineering in 1970, just as a sideline. So because it was right next door to Traco, so I could pull engines for them and do stuff on my cars, and I was still racing, but it gave me a good modus operandi, for Penske would bring his cars in, and everybody'd come in and change engines there, and so I was still in the racing thing, being next door to Traco. They got me the shop. And so that went on, really well. And then I finally decided to retire. I was still driving, mostly a few Can-Am races, but mostly in NASCAR. And of course, when they opened up Ontario, man, I thought that was going to be king. That was drove many races, NASCAR races at Ontario, and did pretty well. Never won them, but I could finish in the top 5 or 10. And in fact, I think the best finish I ever had at Riverside was 4th. I didn't have the hardware to win it, And,
Yeah.
and then, then that with the good old boys, it was lucky I could even finish that well, because it's really a cliquey thing. I know,
Oh, right.
aware of NASCAR, boy, it's something. But I knew them all. They were all good friends. I had a great time, and I retired officially in 77. But then I've been driving more hysterical car races. They used to be historical, but I got started. Now they're hysterical car races.
Did a few of those.
You bet, you sure have. And I have too. I drove more Santa Barbara races after the fact. I drove like 11 or 12 Santa Barbara races, and I drove overseas in Europe, and I drove Goodwood. I've driven back east, and because I'm kind of the hired gun, in the vintage stuff. And at Monterey and Watkins Glen and Mid-Ohio. And so I've just been having a wonderful time, still driving. That's why I keep trim, because it's vanity. It has nothing to do with health. I can still get in my driving suit. And
Can't afford a new
can't
one.
afford a new one now. So
Never get all the patches
I know
off.
it. I can't get the patches off, and nobody would ever buy me another one anyway. So that's right. So and I developed a car in the 80s called the Guldstrand, the GS 80, which became very popular. Built about 40 of those. They were Traco engines and a Corvette that went really well. And then I developed a thing called the Grand Sport 90, which made about every magazine in the world. It was cosmetically absolutely gorgeous, and it ran really well, but 90 wasn't a good time to be selling $100,000 cars.
No.
So I decided to about go broke. I figured if I couldn't make money on one, I should sell a lot of them, and then
Right.
make it on the
You lose a little
on the
on each
volume.
one, but we
Yeah,
make it up in
on the
volume.
volume. Yeah, classic. So I
Been there.
Yeah, I know it. Well, so I finally got out of that, and I've been having an exceptionally good time, with a lot of great customers and friends and the hobby people, and building. It's been my life. I wouldn't trade a damn minute of it for anything. And, God love Willie and the kids, and it's amazing how important family gets after you go past
So
60,
true.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Boy, I used to step on them, walk over them, kick them, God, where are they in the way? Where'd they come from? And all of
Yeah.
a sudden now, they're paramount. They're the most important thing in my life. And how they have put up with me all that time and still accept me is beyond.
Tell me, you have what? You have
I've got 4 kids and 5 grandchildren.
boys, girls, what?
A great mix. 2 girls, 2 boys.
Okay, that's nice.
And the grandchildren are 3 girls and 2 boys.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yep. So and it is good. They're great kids. They
wonderful.
just couldn't be
That's
better.
wonderful.
But they put up with me. I mean, I was not a good father. I got to admit that. I was too either addicted or consumed
Well,
or
fatherhood back in the 50s
Mhm.
is not like it is now. The people now, they take courses in fatherhood.
Oh.
They become professional fathers. Then it was
Yeah.
like, I don't know, what do we do?
They hand you this wiggling, squealing,
Yeah.
stinky little thing, and you're going,
Yeah.
what? I'm not going to touch it. It's yours,
Yeah. What did mother say to
What did
you?
mother? Yeah.
Mom,
and,
what do I do with this?
yeah. And if she really screwed up, you really screwed
Yeah,
up.
really.
Well, they've all turned out incredibly well. They are absolutely fabulous kids. I'm so very, very proud of them. Just can't tell you, and that's luck, because I didn't really have a hell of a lot to do with a lot of it, but I guess you have some influence, and
Yeah.
it was demanding. The one thing I expected was pride and accomplishment, and that seemed to be a secret term that you can't fake. If you develop pride and accomplishment in doing anything, I don't care what it is, you're going to do well, and it's going to give you personal pride and personal integrity and disciplines that are incredibly important that we seem to forget about,
I agree.
And so, yeah, and the automobile brought a lot of that to bear. A lot of it, because you had to be honest or it'd kill you, you had to be right or you were dead.
Yeah.
So, it all of a sudden it sorted itself out, the signal from the noise, you got to get it right. But we're still going strong, still got a little shop in Burbank,
In Burbank?
Yeah, just playing around with great stuff. And we're working now on the 50th anniversary of the Corvette, coming up in
That's right.
2003, and I've been involved with it since ab initio, from the
All
beginning.
right.
Yeah.
I had just a couple of rides in Corvettes, and both memorable. One, it was the only time I've ever been on 2 wheels. That was up in Northern
That's hard to do,
California.
yes.
And the other was at Paramount Ranch, where the throttle
Oh,
stuck wide open. This was a factory car that was actually run by the advertising agency, Campbell
Right.
Ewald,
Campbell Ewald, right.
and did the under-the-table parts thing.
Oh, yes, sure.
So we had all the latest, the metallic brakes and all that
Yep,
kind
yep,
of stuff.
yep. Injectors
But,
and all that.
yeah, with the throttle stuck wide open, that was
Oh,
that was
my-
exciting.
Well, that was a very dangerous track. That was
Yeah.
extremely dangerous. Didn't make a lot of mistakes
But
there.
it was more dangerous in the ambulance on the ride out of there. Because the guy says, I got a race car driver now.
Going to show you how to do it, huh?
Yeah. Scared the hell out of
Yeah, I had an incident at Riverside. I forget when it was. It must have been in 63. Did a beautiful endo. Made every terrible movie you've ever seen. You know those midnight
Yeah.
movies. Well, this was in all of them.
10 minutes of
Where I
crash.
endoed up through the S's.
Oh, my.
Oh, I mean, you don't know it was me, but you've
I've
seen
seen
it.
that.
Oh, you
I
bet
know
you
that.
have.
I
Okay,
know
well
that.
that's me.
That's you?
Yeah.
I know the shot.
Okay, well, that was me. Well, ended up clear up in the dirt, and out like a light. Well, they put me in the ambulance, and they're heading for Riverside Community,
Yeah.
And he hits a bump, and it woke me up. I mean, I was really screwed up, and it woke me up. He says, "Oh, are you okay?" And I said, "One more of those, and I'll drive." You're right, the ambulance ride sometimes gets insane, yeah. But it's been great.
Really appreciate your coming down here. It's
I'm
been,
full of hire,
been
yeah.
fun.
It has been fun. Thank God for California and
Yeah.
and hot rods.
Yeah.
It goes back to that.
Such a unique period.
Well, there was some money, the movie stars and the aerospace business, and there was and the weather and the roads, and it was the catalyst, for
Yeah.
for
Because all
exciting
that,
times.
yeah, the aerospace business had a lot to do with it, because
Yep.
they had to develop an awful lot of technology to compete,
Oh, yeah,
to fight a war. And where was that going to go?
yeah.
So there were little bits and pieces, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
fasteners
Oh, yeah,
and
oh,
different things.
absolutely. And the fallout was right into the racing world.
Yeah.
Can't say that it went into the automobiles completely, but I know it did,
No.
because they had to build tanks, and all of them had to learn an awful
But
lot.
it took a long
Airplanes.
time for it to actually get into
Yeah,
the passenger
yeah.
cars. 'Cause the
Well,
passenger
that's
cars
money-driven,
really-
that's not technology-driven. Racing is technology-driven.
Yeah,
The automobile, our transportation is money-driven.
yeah,
And so you're going to do as little as you can, we all well know, to get it to where you can keep the guy alive long enough to pay for it. And that's, that's about it, But but technology, all racing is technology-driven, so
Yeah.
you look for that when you're doing it, whatever's the latest and greatest. But thank you, Big Bill. My pleasure.
really enjoyed it,
My
really enjoyed it, Dick. Thanks very much.